So, what the hell is the double Irish? It is a system where foreign corporations are able to move their money into Ireland and then back out again without paying tax here or at home. In 1996, the US government changed its own tax rules. It's called check the box, but what it means in plain terms is that the US government lets corporations pretend that the overseas versions of their companies don't exist. If the company doesn't exist on paper, then that profit isn't taxed in the United States. So US corporations can set up a company overseas, call it a subsidiary, and then pretend for tax purposes that that company doesn't exist. The US Treasury signed this rule in December 1996. It was signed by the Treasury Secretary at the time, Robert Rubin. Rubin was lobbied. These laws align exactly what these multinational corporations wanted: a way to hide their profits legally. It came just after a period in US politics where reform pushes to close these kinds of loopholes had been substantial, and this appeared overnight. Suddenly, America shifts and goes completely in the opposite direction. It's highly likely that multinational lobbies, the real muscle here was global banks and big four accounting firms who lobbied to get this enacted. These tax structures, most American voters don't agree with them either. But from 1997 on, US laws make it easy for these corporations to hide their profits. A cumulative estimate of what the US Treasury has lost thanks to this multinational profit shifting since 1997 is over $4 trillion. A paper written by Zuckman and Weir for Oxford called The Missing Profits of Nations estimates that it is at least $110 billion a year in lost income just to America. It's over 500 billion a year globally. Ireland, as the tax shelter, is not receiving the benefit of those lost trillions either. Bill Clinton was the president, the guy from the plain logs. Maybe we should just be undoing every law he passed, because ew. US regulators have complained about this ever since. While the US was making it easier for you to hide your profits abroad, Ireland was making it easy to hide the profits here. In the 90s, Bertie Ahern was the Taoiseach and Charlie McCreevy was the finance minister. Their policy was to make Ireland the cheapest legal address for global corporations in Europe, and they dropped corporate tax to 12.5%. And we had another law. This one let us decide if a company was from Ireland for tax. A company was only from Ireland if it was managed and controlled there. So these companies immediately start to register in Dublin and then claim that their operational base is in Bermuda. Then they don't pay tax in Ireland either. The EU passed a rule in 2003. This rule says no tax is taken off when one group company pays royalties to another company in a different EU country. It's called the EU Interest and Royalties Directive. It exempts many cross-border royalty payments from withholding tax at source. So in the EU, the royalty leg of your earnings can move on to the Dutch subsidiary with no tax being clipped. So you've avoided tax in the United States, you've avoided tax in Ireland, you've avoided tax in the Netherlands, and now you're gone to Bermuda. What Irish people need to understand is there's no direct benefit to the human beings in Ireland from this. All the government has ever claimed that this will do for us is bring us jobs, but it's brought us shit, precarious, zero contract, backwater jobs that we were too good for anyway, and that are now being removed because AI can do them. And we, as a nation, have nothing saved in the coffers from all of this Celtic tigering. We're fucking broke. So here's how you put those two laws together. You set up your first company in Ireland, but you say that it's being run from Bermuda. So now you don't pay Irish tax. Then you register a second Irish company. This one is registered and run in Ireland and sells to Europe. Company 2 takes the lion's share of its profits and pays Company 1 for royalties. So it's like Company 1 is actually Microsoft. Company 2 is Microsoft Ireland. Microsoft Ireland has to pay huge royalties, almost all of its earning, for the licensing of the Microsoft brand and name. But these are all the same accountants. This is the same people. These are the same companies. You're not two separate companies. This is a lie. And those massive royalties wipe out Company Two's Irish profits. So they don't pay any tax. So step one, they create a company in a box that doesn't exist. You can't see me if I'm here. Then they build a bridge that lets them move these royalties around with no tax. And then they anchor the hub. Ireland is a country that offers low tax rates and intellectual property write-off. The result of this system is that Ireland is rich on paper. Ireland is the land of saints and scholars. Irish people are incredibly intelligent. We are world-renowned authors and intellects and innovators. Work that happens here, thanks to our labour, is creating a huge amount of money. It's very valuable work. But you're colonised and you don't see that value. You're flattered that the Americans set up their shop here and you get a 6-figure salary, if you're lucky. That profit lands in the lowest tax buckets that anybody anywhere has in the world. On paper, our GDP keeps going up, but the tax base is thin and relying on PAYE. So now we have huge issues. Cost of living has exploded and homelessness is a serious crisis. And we are failing to secure renewable energy, sovereign energy, in the middle of climate meltdown, because these guys take priority. Ireland's GDP is inflated. Even the CSO says this. Our GDP includes the profits of multinational companies. That profit belongs to owners abroad. The CSO had to create a new category just to strip that out. That lie, that omission about the GDP is what Fianna Fáil have bankrolled their career on for the last 25 years. It's a lie. If you bought it, you've been had. When you strip out the GNI, the GDP drops 57.1%. That's over half of Ireland's GDP. That's not real. It is not Irish income. Revenue is now fragile. Corporation tax look huge, but even the Department of Finance itself has admitted this is an incredibly precarious structural risk and it's not sustainable. It's not stable funding. The Department of Finance reported in 2024 that there are high levels of concentration. The top 10 companies pay over half the corporation tax. And we are completely off track because of this on climate and infrastructure targets. It is a failure. It's a failure of a sitting government. Fianna Fáil don't get to call themselves Irish nationalists. You are colonisers. You colonised your own children. You were supposed to pick up the mantle from the revolutionary leaders and deliver Ireland its economic sovereignty. And instead, Ireland has something called the National IP Protocol. If an industry like Microsoft pays a university like DCU for some public research into stuff that they think will make them profits, then that industry partner gets an exclusive license on that intellectual property indefinitely. Even if the IP is later sold to a different corporation, that corporation still doesn't pay Irish tax indefinitely off work that you did. Our public universities are doing the brunt work, but these firms walk away with the ultimate control and profit. Capital allowance taxes for intangible assets, introduced in 2009, mean once a company has control of an IP, Irish law lets it shelter in something called a knowledge box. 10% tax rate on anything that falls out of one of these qualifying IPs, indefinitely, even if the patent is sold. These multinationals are shaping what we learn and teach, and they're getting priority access to our electricity grid in the middle of a housing crisis and climate meltdown. While you face high bills and electricity shortages that are going to increase, a fifth of all of Ireland's electricity goes to big tech data centres now. These are active, designed policies, and they're not accidents or normal economics. It was never normal. It's theft, it's colonisation, and it continues under the current government.